Welcome and thank you for staying with me. And of course, like I said earlier, our focus will be on the forthcoming Edo polls, where of course a lot is already in top gear. Now, we know that of course, top contenders are good to go. But one pivotal issue right now is the security situation. Just a while ago, the police IGP earlier today did say that there will be restriction of movements amongst the list of issues. Also, there is the issue of INEC, where there have been talks, particularly from the PDP faction, where Anthony Kila did raise some concerns as regards the state's rec, talking about Mr. Onoa, saying that his affiliation with the FCT minister might be a challenge, which of course Mr. Onoa has come out to speak about and denounce. But let me bring in my guest on today's program. Gentlemen, thank you for staying with me.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure.
All right. Let me first take your thoughts on what you make of the security situation in the state. I mean, there has been concerns way before now, even though we know that there have been meetings and talks on this matter. Really germane. But I would like to, of course, start with you. What do you make of the security ahead of tomorrow's polls?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. And it's just a recurring decimal that we always find ourselves here again, talking about the handicaps of our policing system, our criminal justice system, and our judicial system. Now, you can see definitely that there are fears and concerns because policing has been really handicapped. And this is not the right time to be happy to be a police officer in Nigeria, because definitely those that you want to arrest that would go against the law have already compromised the law. That is where we are right now.
You said those that have been are trusted to uphold the law have compromised the law. I'd like you to speak more on what exactly you're referring to.
Okay, now let's take it a little backward. Now you recall that there are quantified number of political cases, and the same police officers implemented the same constitution, arrested culprits, took them to detention, presented them before a court of law to interpret the constitution that was breached by becoming police officers in court. Now, the same evidence, which is even on viral videos everywhere, political evidence of rigging, ballot box snatching, political violence, and political terrorism. Now, the same evidence is presented to the court. The same judicial system cannot implement such criminals that have been found to have violated the constitution to go through a criminal justice system. So you see them back on the streets, you see them holding government offices, you see them traveling abroad. The other time, I think the other thug in Lagos traveled abroad for medical treatment. And when he came back, he was invited to Abuja for appointment. So it becomes a recurring decimal that our security system is handicapped, because those that have been given the opportunity as police officers to uphold the law, arrest people that violate the constitution, they cannot effectively deter and prevent crime.
All right, let me bring in Professor Anthony into the conversation. Professor Kila, thank you for, of course, joining this particular talk. I would like to your, general opinion so far, the build up to tomorrow's big day in Edo State, the matters that are rising that have come up from security to coordination. What's your general assessment?
Well, thank you for having me. I think it's very important for us to step back and remind ourselves of what is normal and what is abnormal. For some reason, in this country, in this electoral process that we have, some people have made us believe that it is normal to talk of security during election. Some people have made us believe that it is normal to deploy police to shut down systems, schools, work, and everything just because some people are vying for election. I think it's important that we remember that that is not normal. It is important that we remind ourselves that election is just about a few people trying to get a job. Let us be very prosaic about it. Let's not say they want to save the country. A few people, a candidate and their deputies, are vying for a job, and the rest of us, the whole life is on hold. That is not normal for the life of everybody to be on hold because a few people want to get a job for two people. We need to remind ourselves that. But we also need to remind ourselves that this abnormality is not a natural disaster or a mysterious occurrence. It is something that comes to fore because those vying to lead us as a people have criminal propensity. It means some, if not all of them, are actually criminals. So we need to be very careful and very clear about it. Once we agree that the people vying for office, some of them are criminal.
I'm sorry, Professor. I'm sorry, Professor Kila, to interrupt your line of thought. But
please,
you said those that are vying have criminal propensity. I'd like you to speak more on what exactly you are inferring.
Well, I'm referring to the fact that people who mouth, I'm coming to serve, and we all agree that the way to be selected to serve is for people to vote for you, starting from primaries, then to the main election. There are people who are behind activities that require the presence of police. What are we afraid of? Why do we need police for election? Because some people are going to try to steal ballot boxes. Some people are going to try to deploy thugs. But these thugs and ballot boxes snatchers, they're not aliens. They're not self-nominated people. They're sponsored by the same people vying for office. So that means among those people, if not all of them, among them, some of them are potential criminals or real criminals. And we need to look at it that way to weigh ourselves. So that is an indictment of our political class. It is also an indictment of our security people because, and here we put security and judiciary together, because they cannot see this crime and treat it as such. And we get lost in all this idea of, who's more, who's less, and we block the whole city, we block the whole state. Shame on everybody. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't have to be so. If you want to serve, whether you want to do it out of service, love for nation or state, or whatever for your ambition, for any reason in the world, that is a subjective issue. What is wrong, legally, morally, and everything, is for you to think to be able to do so, you resort to force, you resort to violence. If we do not speak on this issue, and we keep on saying, put more police, put less police, we're not going to get out of it. And I think it's important to highlight that and take it home and call it name and surname. Criminals vying for office is what we are dealing with.
I mean, those are pretty very weighty assertions there. Criminals vying for office. So I'm still going to stay with you. Yes. I mean, in your context, what would you consider the enabler?
Well, the enablers are the politicians. There's no need to fear about it. Because you see, the thugs, the people who unleash violence, the people who steal ballot boxes, they do so because they're sponsored by people who want to get into power through illegal means. People who are willing to commit crime to assume office, to gain power. That, for me, is the origin of all our problems. We need to look at it that way. If somebody is willing to cheat, to rob, to kill, to snatch, to deploy any form of violence to get into office, you can you can as well go to bed. There's nothing good is going to come out of it. Or if something good comes out of it, it's accidental. Until we're able to say no more criminals in power, I don't know how we're going to get any good thing out of it. Because really and truly, the police might be incompetent. They might be, they might be colluding. They might be taking part. They might not be doing their job well. But all this boils down to the fact that some people are willing to pay, to bribe, to disturb other people, to subvert law and order, to throw decency away. And these same people, you see them in churches and mosques. I think it's time we start saying these things. Otherwise, we're not going to get out of it. We start measuring the amount of policemen. We start measuring what the court says. Can we not realize that if these people were really gentlemen or ladies and gentlemen, this would not be needed? In the most sophisticated places in the world, people vote with pen and pencil. They go to their jobs normally. You can decide to vote or not to vote. It is not a do or die affair. We use such languages. These are terrible things, and they need to be called out. Imagine a society, Dako, my dear friend on the other side, where on election day, there's no need to guard ballot boxes because nobody's so desperate as to want to snatch it. There is no need to deploy police officers because nobody's so desperate as to want to unleash violence. That is where you're going to get good governance from. If somebody is so desperate that they're willing to steal, to snatch ballot boxes, to unleash violence, can you not see that it is counterintuitive to imagine they're going to save the people? That is a major issue that we need to look into.
Okay, let me bring in Roy to react to what Professor Kila said, making reference, talking about criminal elements vying for office. I would like your reaction.
Well, I'm just so puzzled and I'm depressed. I'm puzzled and I'm depressed. Now, the EFCC, the current NSA, once upon a time, listed out some governors that were found wanting in financial crimes. Now, these same people are still in governance, in the Senate, in the legislature, in the state governance. Now, even as ministers. Now, Nigeria itself have multiple of cases against so many people that have been voted for, that are also in this current government. Now, the immunity clause that we generated, the plea bargain that we generated, were all coined by our judicial experts. That's why some people were also made senior advocates of Nigeria, because they are needed to keep the judiciary at that position of lingering cases. So you will see somebody's case is in court or is vying for office, and he will have the opportunity to go into governance. So what he is saying is not far from the truth. It's also related to the handicapcy that I told you about of the police. Let me give you a current example. We are looking for an ex-governor of Kogi State. We were looking for an ex-governor of Kogi State. And currently, the EFCC and the governor are saying that we didn't see you, we saw you, we didn't see you, you came, you didn't come. Now, let me ask you a question, sir. If you take the breakdown of the financial transaction of that governor from where he was wanted till date, there are things you will see. If you take his call logs from all his phones and all his delegates' phones and all these personal assistance phones by the DSS, not individuals, let it be high profile, the DSS and the EFCC and the NSA, you will see a lot of people that also would have been calling him to maybe ask him for one thing or the other. What is your opinion about this and that? Someone that is at large. People in government would have been calling him. You go and check his call log. So the politicians and the political class, you can see them fighting, arguing clamoring, abusing, antagonizing one another in the open, on TV, social media. But in the closet, they are all one. Everything is under negotiations, but the victims become the normal citizens on the street and the puppets that are being manipulated to perpetrate violence. So the case is like a structure and a strategy where we continue to be in office. And after a while, I will tell you, you need to decamp to this party so that you will be able to achieve this or that. You will move to this party. So it's the same system of the same people porting from one party to the other, holding general office, appointing chief justices of Nigeria, appointing ministers of justice in Nigeria, the High Inspector General of Police, and all of these people that are supposed to practice professionalism on our constitution, they are brought into office and also compromised. So there is it's a big cloud on the whole system.
All right, gentlemen, I understand that at this point we really need to go on a quick commercial break. When we return, the show continues. Stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us. This is still Politics HQ on News Central Television. And of course, we are speaking on the forthcoming Edo polls, which will be holding tomorrow in the state. I still have my guest with me, Roy Okhidievbie is, of course, joining us virtually, and also Professor Anthony Kila. Gentlemen, thank you for staying with me. Let me go back to you, Professor Kila. You did make some assertions in your opening remarks, given a sort of a bird's eye view on what you consider the political trend in the country. I'd like you to bring it down to what is happening tomorrow in Edo State. You might choose to look at it, based on maybe a track or the trends in the state. With what you have said and what is happening tomorrow in the state, particularly in the areas of security, and also, will I call it logistical, arrangement, particularly by INEC. What are your takes?
Well, you see, Edo State is a state that I know very well. It's a state that is a microcosm of Nigeria, both in terms of ethnography, i.e. in terms of people, and in terms of the physical geography of the state itself. So, you have dry area, you have riverine area, you have a bit of everything. So it is a very difficult place to monitor and secure 100%. INEC has boasted that they're fully ready. And I use the verb boast because, they won't be on the normal to say everything is in place. As good citizens, we do not have any choice but to trust them. Since they say so, if they're competent. If they turn out not to be ready, then it will be legitimate to say that they're incompetent. Because they have had enough time to study the topography, to study everywhere. They know every polling booth, they know where materials should be. I think we just need to wait from tomorrow to start seeing how they act. And it is important that we make up our mind on the index of success or failure before things happen. If tomorrow they start having problems with voting materials, that is already a bad start. That is like a minus vote for them. If they get it on time, then that is good. We know how the system ought to work in terms of voting, in terms of registration, accreditation, and in terms of vote counting. Any deviation from the laid down road is a failure. And we need to learn to say these things before, regardless of who wins or loses the election. Now, the police are spending a lot of money, are deploying a lot of people. Sadly, they have to do so. If after everything they've done, there is a single case, just one case, of ballot snatching or people not allowed to vote, I argue that we should consider that a total failure or part failure. from the side of the police. I think it is important for us to be able to speak as if we had our face blindfolded, so that it doesn't matter who does wrong or right. We should just stick to the issues, to facts and logic. And that way, we will not have to think, is it this party or is it this person? Let the rule be the same for everybody. Let the principle be equal. So we need to set our expectations and our requirements in very clear terms. That is what I think. So we can judge today. We can see. If the police said they're ready, INEC said they're ready. They said so, not me, not you. So if it turns out they're not ready, then they're incompetent. Maybe they should be fired.
So are you, because I'm trying to sort of place this within context. Are you saying that this is not the first time we've seen promises made by both security and the umpire saying they're ready, top gear, and then at the end of the day, we have cases where maybe the results are questionable or it ends up in court? I would like you to specifically, place it within context.
No, you're very right. I'm not saying it. I echo it because, facts, chronicles, and history of our time tells us that. We've seen so many times, the call press conference to say they're ready, they're on the day of election, they're everything but ready. That's a terrible thing. But what I'm saying is, I totally, you're right. Not I agree with you. You're right. That is what I mean. In the past, INEC, police, the court, so many people have told us they're ready, everything is fine, then it turned out not to be so. What I'm saying is that today, let us set out the index of success and failure before that day, and let us agree, it is not too late, that anything short of what we agreed is a failure that should have consequence. There should be consequence for people who allow the ball to drop. Because there's only one or two things, or maybe the two of them, but we are dealing with either incompetence or mischief when we have this, fact, this deviation. And I think it's time we start dealing with them. The best way to deal with them is to call them out before they happen, to set the tone, so that when the time comes, it will be easy to say, no, you told us ballot will arrive on time. They did not arrive. What should we do to you? Do we jail you? Do we fine you? Or do we fire you? I think that's the kind of conversation we need to start having in this country. Okay. If we want things to work. There should be consequences.
All right. Now, let me move to Roy. Roy, one of the initial concerns, particularly raised by the chairman of the People's Democratic Party in the state, Anthony Kila Egbetokun, was the one where he questioned the state's rec in person of Mr. Onoa, saying that his closeness to the minister of the FCT, might to them pose some sort of credibility challenge. I'd like that graphics to come on screen right now. Now, the state rec actually did react to this in person of Mr. Onoa, where, according to him, he said, it is a fact that I am a cousin to the minister. Before my appointment, I was invited by the Senate, it screened me, and I was confirmed, I was sworn in by Professor Mahmoud Yakubu and posted to Edo State. Now, since last year, nobody complained that I am a cousin to the minister. Of course, I am a cousin to the minister. What we should be talking about this time, or what we should be talking about this time, is the capacity to conduct the election, end of quote. And then it goes further to say, from my background, I am an associate professor of law, and it goes on. But my question is this. Roy, should this truly be a source of concern?
I want to always look at things professionally, okay? Because that particular question has a lot of political connotations. But let's separate it. Let's say there are persons of interest. Who are the persons of interest in this political era in Edo State? Number one should be the contestants. Number two should be the party executives. Number three should be key leaders in security agencies that will participate. Number four should, in no particular order, number four should also be the referee of the match, which is INEC. Okay? Now, if all of these persons are persons of interest, what is the DSS doing? What is the police internal tactical unit doing? You know, these kind of people must have been profiled. Your communication lines would have been profiled. Your visitations or your visiting guests would have been profiled. Your movement would have been profiled. You can hold an office if you were given that opportunity and it was not contested before now. But before now, your movement, your communication, and every other vices would have been put into monitoring. And by professionalism, you are not supposed to be visiting or endorse communication, open or virtual or hidden communication with someone that is also a person of interest in an election which you are participating in as a supervisor or a referee. So I think that Nigerian security system need to upgrade. We need to come to par with international best practices where we can easily flag off any kind of misappropriated behavior or unprofessionalism in the cause of any national interest. Now, let me say this. I think he has mentioned part of it. Number one thing you need to concern yourself is the law, the rules of engagement, and the policies guiding the system. The second thing that you need to do is implementation. And during implementation, the agencies must keep monitoring and flagging off as red things that go out of context. You know, after implementation, then you look at culpability. Those persons that were found wanting, violating or digressing from agreed terms and conditions in any political system, then culpability and penalties, you know. So if we don't have all of this in place, we are definitely creating a movie that is a comedy.
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much for, of course, the insight. But at this point, we really need to go on another commercial break. When we return, we will continue. Do stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us. This is still Politics HQ News Central Television. Well, we are still discussing, matters arising around tomorrow's polls, Guba polls, that is, in Edo State. Well, before I continue with my guest, we have a News Central's correspondent in Edo State live on standby, and I'll be bringing him in right now to bring us up to speed as regards what we know. Amadine Uyi, thank you. What's the update? What do we know?
Thank you, Dr. Everybody is prepared for the polls. We have been observing security agencies since morning, and we have found out that a lot of them are very unfriendly because they are on edge. Early this morning, we visited several local government offices, the INEC offices domiciled at local government areas, and we can confirm authoritatively that the materials that were distributed from the state office of the Central Bank of Nigeria arrived in some of the offices. In fact, as of the time we got there this morning, they were already counting and trying to collate what they had received to juxtapose it with the record sheets they had. By the time we went back, because we wanted to visit we wanted to speak to the National Commissioner, who we heard was already going around the different local government areas. He came, spoke to the staff, and then after he left, they began distributing it to the racks, the resident area controllers, who will be in charge of certain areas during the polls. Now, the security, we noticed a very, very high presence of security personnel within town, not just in Benin City, also in several local government areas, from the Sabongida, or I'm trying to get the name, pardon me, from the Afuze area to the Sabongida Ora area. We observed that almost less than how many kilometers you meet a military checkpoint, not just a police checkpoint. They have mounted security on major roads so that they say they don't want touts and thugs and miscreants who will want to engage in ballot box snatching tomorrow to have a freeway.
All right.
So we can tell you that apart from the show of force which had been ongoing within Benin City, which we observed not only at the INEC office but at major streets, we saw them at the Akpakava area, we saw them at the Sakomba Road, we saw them at several areas, patrols within every minute to make the residents know that they were in charge and they were ready to dominate the area to avoid violence and bloodshed.
Okay, Amadine, you in your opening remark, you said that you met with some of the security personnel. You said they were unfriendly because they are on edge. I would like you to sort of expand on that.
In fact, by the time we go to the INEC office at the Ovia Southwest local government area, there was a detachment of joint security services there. Initially, we met the military and the police, and then later in our presence, we witnessed the arrival of personnel from the state security services. And in fact, the moment they saw us with camera, despite our accreditation, they said, no, you can't do your work here. We tried to explain to them that we are accredited to cover the elections, and also monitoring security is part of our job. Tell us to cover the elections, and you can't tell us to cover the elections and don't monitor the security. So they refused. Even before I could do a stand-upper in front of the INEC office, I had to walk a certain distance. Still, some of them still followed me, insisting. It was when I insisted that I was a journalist and I would do my job that they saw that I was not somebody that was going to bend, and they allowed me to do my stand-upper. So that was what I meant by they were very unfriendly. They say part of their mandate is not just to protect. They don't want journalists around. But I insisted. I said that was not their mandate. If they were saying that, then they are trying to add to the mandate which was given, because INEC before the elections and their representatives who are part of the Interagency Security Council in Abuja, they have all agreed that journalists must be allowed to do their jobs. So if those on the streets, the boots on the ground say journalists should not do their job, then it is not their mandate. That was what I meant by they were very unfriendly.
All right. Amadine, let's also talk about the people. How excited? What's the political temperature like?
Now, some people have said that there might be voter apathy, but from what we have seen, a lot of people we have spoken to. Remember yesterday we came into town, but we did not follow the normal routes. We cut into Benin City from the Auchi-Jatu Expressway, then tried to go into Sabongida Ora, and we saw a lot of campaign ongoing, and people were there. And from the look on their faces, you would know that these people want to participate in the polls. We are hoping that what we saw yesterday will be reflected tomorrow, and there will be no voter apathy. So from the feelings we get from a lot of citizens we have spoken to, many of them, just as is normal with elections, have already taken sides and told us that they will come out to support their preferred candidates.
All right, Amadine Uye, thank you so much for the update, and of course we will keep in touch.
Thank you, Dako.
All right. At this point, go on another commercial break. When we return, the show continues. Many thanks for staying with us. This is still Politics HQ on News Central Television, and we are looking at the polls, the Guba polls in Edo State tomorrow. Well, I have my guest with me, Professor Anthony Kila. Initially, I was also joined by Roy Okhidievbie. He had to, of course, we've lost him at some point, but right now we have Professor Kila, and he will be telling us, a few things as regards what to look out for tomorrow. Now, Professor Kila, thank you for staying with me. Now, there seems to be a trend. We know that for tomorrow's polls, about 2 million plus are registered to take part in the polls tomorrow. We know that about 5,000 plus, materials in terms of the beavers, have been deployed and all of that. But there seems to be a trend where, in spite of all of this preparation and process, many a times, these elections usually end up in court, and the court finally deciding, who the eventual winner is. I've been seeing some really funny posts even on social media where some will speculate that a certain party will win online, another party will win at the polls, while another party will win in court. And this trend seems to be, viral, particularly, as regards last year's election. I'd like you to speak on this trend in particular. Why does it seem like, in spite of all of this level of preparation, in spite of this process, the court still plays a key role in determining the actual winner or the final winner of the votes?
Well, I think, there are 3 points to be highlighted in the analysis you made. Number one is that the fact that with all the preparations, we still have contested election is a mixture of incompetence and mischief from one or more parties involved in the process. There's no other way to put it, But they're either not capable of doing the job, and therefore the system is fraught, or somebody is intentionally creating chaos, and that makes the system fraught. Whichever way is incompetence or mischief. The other thing, the second point to be made, is also the fact that we seem not to understand what democracy is about. We seem to be awed about it. We seem to be acting in strange ways, because this idea of what is said online, what is counted online, is different from what is counted in the poll, or physically, and different from what happens in court. These are ridiculous things that that it shows us as unserious and perhaps not familiar with the concept of democracy, which goes beyond vote counting. There is ethics involved. There is a level of discipline, decency, and decorum, which we seem to be fast losing to court, generally. And I think it's important we refine those things. The third thing is the position of the judiciary, the court in particular, the bench, in electoral and political matters. I would like to warn, as somebody who has studied law, who teaches law, and has respect for law, I would like to warn all those in the bar, in the bench, to be very careful not to allow partisan politics to consume their person, degrade their profession, and annihilate what the judicial system should be. They need to be very careful in the part they play. At the moment, I think the judiciary is overexposed in political matters, and they need to find a way to step back from it. I have personally, but with the support of a few other people, including Olisa Bakopa, including Femi Falana, I've advocated that after elections, results that are contested should be adjudicated in court before swearing in. That all matters should be done before swearing anybody in. And that anybody sworn in should be considered the final elected person. You cannot swear somebody in and that person still has a case in court. It is ridiculous. I think we need to change that. There's something very wrong. The other point I'd like to advocate today, Dako, since you've allowed me, and I think it's something I invite people to think about, is also go back to the context that says that the court should not be able to declare a winner. If somebody is caught of cheating or has violated the rule, what the court should do is disqualify that person and send people back to vote. Nobody should be a governor, a senator, a president, or anybody else by mandate of the court. We need somehow a consensus in this country, and I dare say an elitist consensus among those who can reason together to say, look, let us stop some kind of things. And one of them, let us modify some kind of behavior, some kind of processes. And one of such processes and occurrence is the role of judiciary in political matters and electoral system.
All right, thank you so much, Professor Anthony Kila, for your time on the program. All right. And this, of course, is the point where we draw the curtains on today's episode. In case you missed out, you can actually catch up on our YouTube platform. That's News Central TV. You can also follow us across social media at News Central TV. You can follow me personally at Dakbo, at Digboye on social media too. News Central will be on top of it tomorrow from 7 a.m., bringing you live update as it happens in Edo State. You want to stay with us across board on TV, on social media, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. You just want to, catch up with us on News Central tomorrow from 7 a.m. as we will be bringing you live as it happens tomorrow in Edo State, at the Gobe polls. Thank you for watching. The opinions of our guest remains theirs and not that of News Central. Good night.